Hello my loves, it's Hailey Reese, and in today's video I'm going to be doing something much different than anything that I have ever done on my channel to date. Mind you, I know it's a fairly new channel, so maybe it's a little early to be like throwing that out there. First, before I get into this video, I want to take note that yes, my arm is no longer broken, thank goodness. And on top of that, I really want to apologize for not posting anything last week. Last week I got my cast off and then I had extreme laryngitis and a really bad cold, so I'm really sorry, but I'm going to make up for that this week. Today is my first paranormal video and I decided to do it today because here in Toronto it is cloudy, gloomy, kind of like an eerie day, and I found myself in that dark corner of YouTube watching all the creepy videos that other people have made and other people have experienced, and it brought back extreme traumatic stress from the time that I babysat a little girl who I truly believe in my heart was possessed. Now I know that's a really extreme statement, and if you guys don't believe in that kind of thing, then absolutely you don't need to. Don't go hating on me for it. This is just my experience. If you are a skeptic, I just suggest that you sit back and take a listen to what I experienced and make your own judgments based off of what happened to me. Because it's very easy to not believe in things until they happen to you and suddenly it's like, wow, this might very well be real. So sit back, relax, maybe turn a light on, and get ready to hear the story that has haunted me very often. Ever since I stopped watching them, it is a very freaky story. For the purpose of security reasons and privacy, I am not going to be exposing particular details. Certain things like names and places and time frames haven't changed, but I can assure you that the particular events I'm going to share with you have not been altered or dramatized in any way, shape, or form. I am not changing anything that occurred, the names and things like that, for security reasons and for privacy reasons. You know, in the odd chance that this family ever watches this video, I don't want them to know it's about them. I have been babysitting and nannying since the dawn of time. Literally from the age where I could get my babysitting license, back when that was a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing, but I think now you just babysit. You don't really need to get certified. But I wanted to babysit right when I could, and I've always been into childcare. Never in my life, I have experienced some interesting children, but never in my life have I ever experienced a child like the one I'm about to tell you about. And that's not saying little because I have babysat and cared for a number of children. Before I got really into my music career and I ended up moving and all of that jazz, I was a full-time nanny. That was what I did. That was like my first job ever. That was what I did. But this story actually takes place after my singing career had already been established. I used to kind of babysit when I'd be home, my neighbor's kids, just on and off. It was kind of like, hey Hailey, are you in town? Like, can you come watch the kids? And I loved her little boys, so it was awesome to go watch them. They were very small. They were absolutely beautiful children. They are absolutely beautiful children. I just no longer have the time to watch them. And she had an elderly woman who she knew who needed childcare for her 2 grandchildren. Now, I had never met this woman before, but my neighbor asked me if she could give the woman my phone number and if I would be interested in potentially occasionally watching her children. I obviously gave her the go-ahead and I said, here's my number, I'll definitely watch her kids, etc. And so I get a call from this old woman. She tells me she has a granddaughter that's 7 years old named Amelia and a grandson 5 years old named Grayson, and that she watches them during the week and they go see their mother on weekends because their mom is a single mom and it's really hard for her to watch the kids and go to work. She works full-time, so the grandma, since she is retired, watches them during the week. Now, she let me know that she was going to be starting some classes and things like that, and she was going to be joining a few things around the city to kind of get out there before she gets too old, that she really needed some help with the kids. So of course, without a hesitation, I said, absolutely, I'll help you out. You know, I can't guarantee my availability all the time, but I can definitely help you out on the odd time here and there. So the first time that I went to go watch the kids, I had never met them before. And I had to start watching them at 6 a.m. because she was going off to do, I don't even remember what, but something that day. So I get there and the kids are still asleep, and she kind of gives me the rundown on how the day is supposed to go and how it's supposed to look and where the little boy sleeps, where the little girl sleeps, etc, etc. And the first thing I noticed, and this is gonna sound cliche and this absolutely wasn't a red flag for me, but I definitely noticed it, was that they lived surrounded by a cemetery and the house was extremely old. Obviously, I've been to houses that are by cemeteries before. I've been in extremely old houses. I wasn't scared in any way, shape, or form. I wasn't speculating anything. It was just something that I took note of and will later come into the story in a more dramatic way. So the kids get up and Grayson wakes up first, and he's this wonderful little boy, and I really enjoyed watching him, and he was vibrant and smart and just really, really great. And then Amelia wakes up. And Amelia seemed relatively normal when I first met her. I mean, she was your average 7-year-old, but she enjoyed video games and playing outside, and she wasn't so much of like a Barbie, sit down, paint my nails type of girl. She was more of like a tomboy. Like I said, she was just a very normal child from what I saw. But as Amelia started to kind of get to know me better, I started to learn some things about her that I found rather strange. The first time that I babysat her, she mentioned 2 things that I found just a little odd for your average 7-year-old. The first one was that she wanted to go play in the cemetery. And I told her that I didn't really feel that that was appropriate, and she said that her grandma always let her go and play in the cemetery. And I said, well, I'll talk to your grandma, but unfortunately I'm not gonna go do it before I talk to her. For me, I don't really think that there's anything fun in playing in a cemetery. I think that that's a place of mourning. And I don't really feel that children should be running around a cemetery. So when she told me this was like a regular thing that she did, that was kind of like a red flag to me. Like, that's a little bit strange. But again, I didn't think much of it. 7-year-olds say things all the time. I didn't think that she actually did it. And another thing that she said was that sometimes she gets really, really enraged, and it's like something takes over her body and she just wants to hurt people. And this was alarming to me, not for any like paranormal reason, just because, you know, you really shouldn't be wired that way at 7. You shouldn't have that rage and violence in you. And I just kind of wondered like maybe what had happened in her past to make her feel that way. But like I said, it wasn't a paranormal thing. So the first time passed, and those were really the 2 things that kind of stood out to me. There was nothing. The first time was a really, really short babysitting. It was like from 6 to 10 a.m. It wasn't anything crazy. And as I was leaving, I said to the grandma, you know, Amelia told me that she likes to go play in the cemetery. And before I could even finish my sentence, the grandma says, yes, I've stopped trying to fight her on that. She's always drawn to it, so I let her go and play in it. And I just found that really strange. And I said, in what way does she play in it? And she said that she just likes to walk through it and kind of like hang out in there. She doesn't disturb anything. She just plays in there with her imaginary friends and does her thing. And I thought to myself, like, okay, maybe this little girl is like a ghost whisperer. I don't know why. I certainly was not wanting to go take walks through cemeteries at 7 years old, but then again, every kid is different. So I just left and kind of like came home and told my mom about it and was like, this is a little bit strange. And my mom's like, yeah, that's super odd, but I mean, to each kid their own. They don't have to go in the cemetery with you. They can do that with their grandma. So I was like, you're absolutely right. A few days later, the grandma messages me again and asks me if I could come and watch the kids. And of course I said yes. And I get there, and this time it was going to be for an entire day. So I was really gonna get to know the kids this time. And we were kind of going about our regular day. And you know, Amelia started to say things to me that I found extremely weird. She would say things like, they're coming now, I have to leave. And I couldn't understand what she was saying by this. I know it sounds like a horror movie, it sounds absolutely crazy, and maybe you might think, oh, she heard this on TV, this is something that she says. But just bear with me, it gets very, very weird. Grayson asked me if we could make drawings and color and whatever, and I said absolutely, and I asked Amelia if she wanted to come. And she said, sure, I love making pictures. So obviously we all sit down together and we're making pictures. And I look over at Amelia's picture, and it is, oh, like something from your nightmares. And I have a picture of it on my phone, but my mom told me that I really shouldn't be putting any of the pictures of all the things I'm gonna tell you that I do have, just for privacy reasons. But if I do decide to put it, then I'll insert it here. But she drew herself with all this darkness around her, like dark little figures. And she was drawing it, and she had this sinister look in her eyes. And I asked her, what's the inspiration behind your picture? And she said, it's me at night when the darkness comes to visit. This is a 7-year-old. And so obviously I start to pry at her, and I'm like, what darkness comes to visit Amelia? And she says, the devil's little helpers. This is a 7-year-old little girl. I didn't know what to say at this point. I felt like I was in a little bit over my head. I mean, I'm not bringing religion into this, to each of you your own, but I was raised Catholic. I believe in God. I believe in God's light. I obviously do believe that there is a darker side to the world. Trust me, I believe that. If you can't believe in one and not the other, that's the way that I see things. But I didn't really want to hear that, but I also didn't want to start pushing religion on children. So I didn't know how to approach it. I felt very, very overwhelmed. And so I asked her, what do you mean the devil's little helpers? And she says, they're my friends. They show me the darkness. And my heart kind of started to race at this point, and I was like, okay, this kid is a little too much for me. And then all of a sudden she looks up with the most serious look on her face and goes, they're what make me do the bad things. And I look at her and I look over at her little brother, and he goes, it's true. She is very, very mean when they come out to play. And I asked Grayson if he's seen them, and he says he hasn't, but he sees his sister change. So now I'm like freaking out. I feel like this is like a freaking horror movie. I'm feeling very, very overwhelmed, but at the same time I'm thinking like, these are children, like come on, like, you know, let's give her its take. And I didn't think much of it. I babysat them a couple more times during the day after that, and it was kind of like the same occurrences. She wanted to go to the cemetery, she wanted to talk about the dark people, she had creepy drawings, she would talk about violence and blood and gore in a way that 7-year-olds don't talk. And so finally I brought it up to the grandmother, and I said, I just want to let you know the types of things that Amelia is drawing and the types of things that she is saying. And she sighs and says, I know we have her in with a psychiatrist. They haven't had any mental illness come forward in any of her evaluations, so we're trying to figure it out. She's like, it's like Amelia is one way, and then Amelia switches. In the next second, it becomes a different way. But when they tested her for borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, and bipolar, she didn't have any of the other symptoms of that, and they just came back negative. So then this started to freak me out, because I wasn't the only one that noticed these behaviors. She was in with a doctor. They couldn't figure out why she was the way she was. The grandmother said they didn't watch anything violent, that as far as they knew, besides when they went to school, that there was nothing of those sorts or of those messages that she's telling and the stories that she's telling. There's nowhere that Amelia could have got this. So I'm really, really freaked out, but I had already at this point committed to watching them overnight. And it wasn't going to be completely overnight, but it was going to be until about 2, 3 in the morning. And this was because the grandmother had a wedding and she couldn't bring the kids. It wasn't kid friendly. So I was really, really apprehensive about going and babysitting the kids, just because of how I was feeling about Amelia and how like just the gut feeling that came about me when she would switch. I can't explain it, guys. Like, she would go from being a normal 7-year-old little girl to using these words and sharing these messages and drawing these things and talking about these people that come inside of her and become her. And it would just flip in a switch, and it would just scare the living shit out of me. Like, it was so scary. So I was hesitant, and I thought about canceling, but I felt bad for the grandmother. Like, she did so much for these kids, and this was a wedding that she had asked me a few weeks in advance for. So I was like, you know what, okay, I'll watch the kids. So it's around 1:30 in the morning. I put the kids to sleep at around 7:30. Amelia was allowed to stay up in her room until about 8. And then I was just watching TV, and I refused to fall asleep. I was so afraid to fall asleep because I did not know like what she was gonna do or like where she was gonna pop out of. All of a sudden I'm watching TV, it's around 1:30, and I hear these little footsteps coming down the stairs, and it's very slow, not like a little kid coming down because they've woken up. Very, very slow paced footsteps. And around the corner comes Amelia. And so I'm like, Amelia, sweetheart, are you okay? She doesn't say a word. Her eyes are open, but they're straight like this. And she's walking towards me. And I said, Amelia, honey, can I get you anything? Are you okay? And she goes, I'm fine. Guys, I can't even say that because it just like gives me chills. Like, oh my god, like talking about this, I have such like a horrible feeling in my stomach. So she comes over to the couch and she turns and she sits beside me and she's staring straight at the TV, not saying a word. And I said, Amelia, sweetheart, it's 1:30 in the morning. Like, why are you up? And she turns to me and she says, and I will never forget, oh my God. She goes, I'm waiting until 3. And I said, you can't stay up till 3, baby. Like, you gotta go to sleep. And she looks over at me with the most serious face and says, but how will I write down the messages? And I said, what messages? She says, from them. And my heart like started to beat. It's 1:30 in the morning. Like, I'm alone in this old house surrounded by a cemetery. I have this little girl who's been freaking me out for like the past couple of weeks, telling me that she needs to stay awake until 3 a.m. because how else will she write the messages? And so I asked her, what messages? Can you tell me about these messages? And she says, I can show you. So now I'm like, oh my God, did I just ask for something that I don't want to know? Or like, what the heck? So she takes my hand and she takes me upstairs, and I go into her room and she has like a notebook, like every little kid, like a little notebook that she draws in. And I literally have pictures on my phone that I took of these things because I didn't think anyone in my family was gonna believe me. I had told them all these stories about her and they thought that she was just being a little kid and just saying silly things, and maybe she watched a horror film she wasn't supposed to watch. But when I saw these drawings and these poems and like this writing, it was like not what a 7-year-old would come up with themselves. And if they did, it's like, thank God she's in seeing a psychiatrist, because that is not normal behavior. Like, these are not things that 7-year-olds write about and say. So I'm gonna read you them because I'm probably not gonna put them on the screen. If I do, then they'll be there, but I don't think I'm going to, just because my mom said for privacy reasons, like it's some little kid's writing. The first page, at the top, it says Lucifer's eye. And then in brackets it says the all-seeing eye. And she has a couple drawings of it, and all of the triangles have eyes in them, like you would see online. And for a moment I thought like maybe she saw this online. And it says, I see everything, I represent the world, I know everything. And I was like, what the heck? Like, is this even a joke? And then all of a sudden, she shows me another poem, and these were the only 2 things I looked at because it was 1:30 in the morning and I was literally freaking terrified. Like, I was so scared, I was so uncomfortable, but I didn't want her to know. She had a poem called The Last Breath. And I'm not gonna read the whole poem because she wrote it, and like I said, if they come across this video by any chance or any means, I don't wanna get in trouble, but I will read you of a couple little like snippets of it. The first sentence is, hear my warning, human of light. Okay? And then it says, a few lines down, it goes, when it seems to be the night, monsters and shadows shall give you fright. This is a 7-year-old little girl, okay? Like, this is what blows my mind to this day. Like, there's no way, unless, do some research, guys, see if you can find this poem online, because unless this poem is from online, like, there's no way that a 7-year-old child should be able to write like this. Like, I just don't understand it. And it says, they'll creep without a trace. When they speed up their pace, it's blood the shadows will taste. Oh my God, guys, I'm getting goosebumps. Like, I'm so uncomfortable talking about this. And then it says, when you have failed, a price you must pay. For when the monsters see you bailed, they'll take your last breath away. Oh my God, like, this is like a real picture, I'm not kidding you guys, that I took in my phone. Like, this is honest to God, under oath, like over my life. Like, this is honest to God, a poem that a little girl wrote, like on her notepad, in her writing. Like, I wish I could show you it. I wish that like it was like legal and okay for me to show you it. Like, I'm shaking. Like, even like talking about it now, it blows my mind. It's so freaky. But the last thing that really freaked me out of this whole thing was I decided that I was no longer going to babysit for them. And the mother had actually got my number from the grandmother, and she called me and said one night, look, Hailey, like, I'm in a really tight position. Can you please come watch the kids at my house? Blah, blah, blah. And I felt compelled to, even though that night had scared me so badly and I hadn't watched them since. I just felt like if someone's in need and like I can help them, like, okay. And so I went over there to go see the kids, and Grayson and Amelia were both acting the exact same. Like Amelia was acting like a normal 7-year-old girl. She was, you know, playing with us. She was not saying anything weird or creepy or scary or gory or like anything like that. And so I asked her, I said, Amelia, when you're at mommy's house, do you write things like that? Is it like when you're at grandma's house? And I kid you not, guys, she said, oh no, my friends don't come here. They like to stay near the cemetery. Like, what? What? So like, not only did I notice that she was acting totally different, but she says so nonchalantly, like, oh no, like, my friends like to stay near the cemetery, and keeps playing. I don't know, guys, like, maybe I'm completely in the wrong here. Maybe it's just a little girl who has a wild imagination and can write incredibly creepy, well-written things for her age, and has this like crazy, morbid imagination that's running wild, and maybe her friends are showing her things at school that are a little bit graphic for her. But to me, this was the closest thing to like a possession that I've ever experienced. Like, I've honestly had a lot of paranormal experiences in my lifetime, and this was the one time that I felt that I was close to somebody who had actually been like taken over by something paranormal. Like, it was crazy how quickly she would switch up from being one kid to a completely different kid the next second. The poems and the drawings and the things that she was talking about just were unlike anything I've ever experienced with a child in my lifetime, and were enough to lead me away from watching those kids. And it's a shame, because Grayson was a very, very fun little boy to watch, but as much as I really did like Amelia, she's too much when she switches over to whatever, her imagination or whatever it is, and I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just too much. That is it for today's spooky video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I am glad that that part of my life is over, and that I am no longer watching her. And I pray that if it is something going on in her head, that she gets the help that she needs to not have those types of thoughts and feelings, and to be up at those hours of the night seeing shadows. Like, I mean, I had night terrors as a kid, and it was really, really hard, and I had to see the doctor for it. So I really hope that she got the help that she needed, if that were the case. If you guys enjoyed this video, I know it was different than anything I've done, give it a big thumbs up, because like I said, even though this is the only possession story I have tons of paranormal experiences that I could share with you guys. So make sure to let me know in the comments below if you want to see something more like this, and let me know your thoughts. Do you think Amelia was possessed, or do you think that she was just a kid with a very, very wild imagination? Let me know. If you guys enjoyed this video, like I always say, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on when I post, and give this video a big thumbs up. It encourages me to keep doing this, and just makes me feel good when you do, so please do that. And remember, my loves, do all things with kindness. Until next time, love you.